Hey, this is Saran from Restored into New. In this video, I'm going to give you step by step how to paint your kitchen cabinets and do it right. The very first step that you want to do is clean your cabinets. If you do not clean your cabinets the way you should, your paint's not going to hold up. It's going to chip, it's going to flake, and you're going to have a big mess on your hands. You want to look at my past video on the 7 steps to prepping furniture for paint. That also works for kitchen cabinets. I used degreaser, I use a multi-cleaner, I sand, I use TSP, and I clean it really, really good with water to get all the residue off and then let it dry overnight. After you clean and get all your hardware off, you want to pull your drawers out and take your cabinet doors off and then start prepping the room. I am going to be spraying, so to do that you've got to do a little bit more prep work to make sure that you don't get overspray in any of the other rooms or on the walls. So it takes a little bit more work for the pre-prep, but spraying is so much faster and it leaves like a factory looking finish. And for the sprayer, I'm using Graco True Coat 360. So, after you prep the room, as you can see, I took paper and I closed off all of the cabinets because I didn't want them to have to pull everything out. So it's easier for me to just put a barrier up so the spray doesn't get inside the cabinets. You also want to pull out the drawers so you can get to all of the frames. And also you want to cover up any appliances with plastic. And also you want to close off any doorways so that overspray doesn't get into the other rooms, which is what we did here. Once you prep your room, you're ready to start. We taped off everything that we could and we can start priming. The primer that I use and I recommend is an oil-based primer. Anybody who tells you, oh, you can use a water base, no. Oil-based primer. It holds up so much better and it resists any moisture, which you get a lot of in kitchens. So the primer that I used was Kiehl's Stain Blocking Primer. Again, it's oil-based, and I do 2 coats. And I sand in between each coat. And sanding is going to help you create a smooth, buttery finish. There's nothing like it. You have to sand. It just comes out so much better, especially if you're spraying. After your second coat of primer, you're going to sand it again and then clean off any dust or debris. I use a vacuum attachment first, and then I go over it again with a tack cloth or something just to catch anything that my vacuum didn't catch. A quick note, if you're going to use an oil-based primer, it smells. So make sure that you use a respirator so that you don't end up with a really bad headache or damaging your lungs. You should wear a respirator when you're working with any paints or any sanding, but it's very important that working with oil-based paints or primers that you use a respirator and have great ventilation in the kitchen. Here, I'm going to open up the doors, let some air in to air everything out. And that is where I am right now. I'm about to start my first coat of paint. And the paint that I use is, actually there's a couple that I use. I use Sherwin-Williams Pro Classic in semi-gloss. And the color they chose was Ice Cube, which is kind of cool. And it's kind of a white color that has a little bit of a gray tint to it. But it's a white cabinet. They're going from oak to white. So we've got to do 2 coats. And I'm on the fence on this one. Some people like to sand in between their paint coats. I do it depending on the sheen. For semi-gloss, I don't really do it. But anything less than that I do. When I work with satin or eggshell or obviously flat, I sand with semi-gloss. Because I use a sprayer and I sand it between my primer coats, I get a nice smooth finish. So I don't feel that I really need to sand in between semi-gloss coats, so I don't do it. But I do let it sit overnight. So today I'm going to put my first coat of semi-gloss Pro Classic. I also use the Emerald, which is the next stage up. And then you have the trim enamel. And this is an acrylic latex paint, and they just dry harder than some of the lesser, cheaper paints. So if you're going to do your kitchen cabinets, do not cheat on the paint. Don't go cheap. Spend the extra money. Get a good quality paint so that your cabinets will hold up. Because kitchen cabinets take a beating. So at least mine do with all my kids. So we're going to do that. After your second coat, you're going to let it dry and set, and don't touch anything. I prefer to let it sit 48 hours, but if you do it 24 hours later, that's fine. Put your hinges back on your doors, put the drawers back in. Just be careful and try to not finger your cabinets too much until the paint can fully cure. And I know it's hard to do in a kitchen, but they'll really hold up if you can really let them cure longer. When I do my doors, I did not do them here at the client's home. I took them back to my house because I have room to lay them all out. And I recommend doing your doors flat. Do not try to do them hanging up. It just does not look good. One, the paint that I'm using is a self-leveling paint. And it's really hard for paint to self-level when it's sitting up like this. It needs to lay flat so that everything can kind of rest out, all of the ridges, especially if you're using a brush or a roller. But again, I'm using a sprayer, but still, I need that self-leveling to work. So I lay everything out flat. And another recommendation is to do the backs of your doors first, because you're not really going to see the backs of the doors. So if there is a little imperfection or something from flipping them, it's on the inside of the cabinet. So do the backs first, your two coats, and then wait overnight and then flip them. And I like to put a little foam underneath my wood that's holding it up off of the floor, just so nothing gets dinged or dented. And then I lastly do the fronts of the cabinets. I do my two coats, and then I just let it sit and sit and sit. Then you can put your hardware back on the drawers, on the cabinets, on the doors, everything, and hang everything back up. So that is my step-by-step on how to do your kitchen cabinets and how to paint them and do it right. Because who wants to spend thousands of dollars to have somebody come in to do it? It is so expensive. But if you can take the time and you have a good week block of time that you can do it, you can save a lot of money. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, like and subscribe. Thank you.